I was driving home. I'd been working. It was raining, I remember that. And I was just fed up. Everything was falling apart, and I was like, the one thing I was good at, I can't do anymore, and that's what I felt gave me a purpose. That's what I was good at, but I can't do that now. And I was like, all I'm doing is causing people nausea. And I thought, what's the point? I was crying, I was in a bad place, you know. And I was like, what is the point? I'm not doing anyone any favours. And my point on this one is, there's a lot of people that said, you know, people that take their own lives are selfish, but then you're not in a selfish state of mind. You're thinking about other things, you're thinking about other people, and you just see yourself as a burden, or you're not lending any value. And that's how I saw it.
My name's Mark Ormrod. I'm a Royal Marines veteran, and I'm currently on a journey on behalf of the Veterans Foundation, travelling around the UK, speaking to other men and women from the armed forces, talking about the important topics and some of the difficulties that they face living life as a veteran in the UK.
There's some terrible limescale in there, mate, if you're peering in. As you get older, I don't think people expect you to have role models or people to look up to, or people to inspire you. And you know, if ever I need inspiring, I'll go and have a look and see what Mark's up to, because it reminds me to stop moaning about whatever I'm about to moan about and get on with the stuff that I've got going on.
When I applied to join the Royal Marines back when I just turned 16, I had an image in my mind of what it meant to be a Royal Marines commando. Physical strength, a sharp mind, professionalism, you know, bravery, all these kind of things. And to me, like, the ultimate Royal Marine would have been everything that Foxy is.
So me and Mark are going to be chatting soon enough when he gets here about veteran stuff, really. About veterans and, you know, making sure that people don't forget about them.
He was a Royal Marine, he went Special Forces, he was a sergeant, which is arguably the best rank to be at because you're still in the mix with the lads, but you got a bit of a command element of your job. And he did all the cool stuff, you know, which in my mind being a Royal Marine was. And then he took it to that next level.
I've got mates that have left the military and are struggling. I've got mates that have left the military and who aren't struggling but have got other things going on. And a lot of, you know, the part of that journey that we all have in common is that we're veterans.
Whenever I speak to anybody about mental health issues, particularly things like post-traumatic stress disorder, and you know, everyone says there's a stigma, you know, we're men, we don't talk about this. I always direct them to Foxy and say, well, look at this guy. Because in my mind, he's the ultimate alpha male, you know what I mean? And if he's open enough and he's honest enough to be able to put it all out there and let people know what he went through, what he struggled with, what he had to overcome, then I don't think anyone else really has any excuse not to open up and talk about their issues.
We didn't know each other in the Royal Marines. We actually met after we'd both left. It's a funny moment, actually. So I was with a good friend of mine, Jamie Sanderson, and Jamie said to me, look, we're going to meet Mark Ormrod. Now, obviously, I knew who Mark was. You know, he'd become a bit of a face around town. This Range Rover pulled into a disabled spot, and it was a nice Range Rover, and the guy from the hotel came running up shouting that you can't park there. It's a spot for disabled people. The driver's door opened, and out came Mark, and this guy's face it was awesome. He like shut up and just slithered away back into the hotel. But that was the very first time I saw Mark, and we've been mates ever since. You know, we don't always see each other, but we can sit down, pick up conversation pretty quickly, talk about stuff, and you know, I'm honoured to know him. He's an inspiring guy.
Foxy, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you're very busy, and thank you for opening your home to us so we can have a chat. Talk a little bit about your career, a little bit about your life, the job you used to do and the job that you do now. Do you think it was your background and everything you've done and achieved, places you've been, the things you've seen, were they contributing factors as to why it took you so long to say, actually, I think this is affecting me. You know, I need to deal with this. Was it an ego thing, or were you just trying your best to muddle your way through everything?
Bit of both. Maybe an ego thing. Not an ego thing. It wasn't an ego thing. It was more because we'd already had presentations and spoken about mental health, and you know, we'd actually had a couple of tours, or at least one tour where we came back and had an interview, and we were expected to talk openly about it. Everyone lied in that interview. How are you feeling? Great. Yeah, you sleeping well? Yeah. You drinking much? Nah, not at all. All that sort of stuff. But we'd already had those conversations, so theoretically it should be okay to talk about it. But I just created this stigma in my own head. I was worried about my career. I was worried about what lads would think of me. You know, it's weak. No one's ever spoken about it. They were all the things that I worried about. That's why I didn't talk about it.
You did several back-to-back tours, right? Constantly on operation. How did you deal with that period where it's almost quiet?
I didn't deal with it, to be honest. I didn't, never decompressed. Sometimes came straight into a shopping trip, walking down the high street, it's pouring with rain, 18 hours before being on a job. You know, stuff going bang, noises, people shouting, screaming, whatever. And I never really dealt with it, and also I was absolutely garbage at dealing with everyday life. And if I'm being honest, my mental health was about the constant change from one to the other,
Yeah.
And the thing that I yearned was to go back and do the stuff that I was trained to do, because I knew how to do that.
Right.
I remembered that presentation. Went and started to do the PDT, the pre-deployment training for the next tour. We were getting involved in all sorts of stuff, doing stuff in the UK, all cool, all stuff that you joined up to do, and I just couldn't be asked. I was like, where's my motivation gone? And I was in charge of teams, and I was having to debrief sort of like different exercises and scenarios, and I was like, this is out of order, this isn't right. And I went and took myself under the radar to the mental health department, which, you know, go into sick bay, go into the med centre like that. Yeah, I'm here to...
This was on camp?
It was on camp, okay. Yeah, but I sort of made sure, I tried to make it as under the radar as possible. Spoke to it was a woman at the time, and I was like, look, this is all off the record, I just want you to tell me what I need to do to get my mojo back. It didn't happen. It was a little bit more in depth than I was willing to admit.
Right. What was your worst day in service?
My worst day in service was probably the day that I left.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know it at the time. I thought it was going to be the best day. I was like, right, I'm a civvy now.
Yeah.
Got out, got in the back of the van, took the suit off, took the thing out, and drove home, and I felt a bit numb. I was like, this is obviously going to be like a 2 or 3 month stretched out feeling.
It's very... the whole med discharge thing is quite clinical, isn't it?
After all that time in the military of going away and going to places like Afghan, which are, you know, that place had a big impact on me, and had a big impact on everyone, didn't it, really? And then at the end of all that, it's like, yeah, cheers. And I was a bit like, I felt numb, to be honest, I think.
It all kind of came to a head for you, didn't it? Down in Devon, I think you were?
Yeah.
At the cliff.
Dark place, Devon, mate.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I mean, do you mind
No.
talking a little bit about that, and what led you to that point, and then what led you away from that point?
So I was driving home. I'd been working. It was raining, I remember that. And I was just fed up. Everything was falling apart, and I was like, the one thing I was good at, I can't do anymore, and that's what I felt gave me a purpose. That's what I was good at, but I can't do that now. And I was like, all I'm doing is causing people nausea. And I thought, what's the point? I was crying, I was in a bad place, you know. And I was like, what is the point? I'm not doing anyone any favours. And my point on this one is, there's a lot of people that have said, you know, people that take their own lives are selfish, but then you're not in a selfish state of mind. You're thinking about other things, you're thinking about other people, and you just see yourself as a burden, or you're not lending any value. And that's how I saw it.
And again, this is why, you know, the way you use your platform is so powerful, because it lets people know that actually the best thing to do is to be like, okay, I've got an issue here, I need some support, and then going out and getting that support.
I think the issue you've got is, like, we're way down the line at the moment where we are now from when I left the military, when we left the military. And I think the conversation around mental health has come on leaps and bounds. We're in a different place. Society's different. Its approach to it's different. You know, you got big corporate businesses that embrace it. They have these conversations. And in a big room, in our society, there is no stigma. The issue is the stigma is always created by the individual suffering with it in their own heads. That's why we need to keep having these conversations. A while ago, after I left the military, I confided in someone who wasn't in the military about mental health, my mental health, and he was like, mate, don't tell anyone about that. I ended up going through a phase of I was like, this bottling it up and not talking about it is doing me no favours. And I was like, spoke to a few people and like response was fine. And I was like, I feel a bit better. And actually now being open and honest about my emotions and being vulnerable, I find it powerful for me.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it for me as well as, you know, encouraging people to do it. But there is a personal gain out of it.
Yeah. Well, Foxy, thank you again for your time, for your hospitality, and for sharing your story. I know some of the things we talked about are pretty sensitive subjects and not easy to talk about. And thank you again, you know, from me personally and on behalf of a lot of people I know, for using the platforms that you have for good to encourage other people to talk about and seek help with their mental health challenges. Thank you, mate.
Matt, I just want to say thanks to you and the Veteran Foundation, because ultimately you're funding stuff that's super important. You know, just because things aren't prevalent at the moment in the news, you know, there isn't a war or a conflict that the UK seems to be involved in, but even though they are involved in stuff, you know, people suffer for a long time after the events, you know. It's people from the Falklands, way probably before then, but all the way up until recent conflicts as well. It's important stuff.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for episode 1 of 2Gether. I want to give a special shout out to Splash Projects for helping to fund and support this video and to make it happen. And to you, Foxy, thank you again,
mate,
for your time.
It's a pleasure. Nice one.
The 2Gether campaign was created by the Veterans Foundation with the aim of raising £100,000 to support 100 veterans. The Veterans Foundation gives out grants to various different military charities all over the UK, but we need your support. So please, click the link in the description below, head over to our page and donate whatever it is that you can afford.